How to make any woman miss you is not about tricks, not about games, not about manipulation. It's about understanding human behavior, about respecting yourself enough to know that attraction is not sustained by constant presence, but by the right balance of presence and absence. People don't miss what they always have. They miss what they feel slipping, what they can't predict, what they can't fully control. The moment you make yourself too available, too easy, too predictable, you strip away the very tension that creates longing. Missing someone is born out of contrast, out of space, out of time apart, out of moments where silence speaks louder than words. And the truth is, when you finally stop worrying about whether or not she misses you, that's usually when she starts to. Because missing someone doesn't happen when you're clinging to them. It happens when you're living in a way that makes your absence felt. It happens when she knows you're not sitting around waiting, that you're moving, building, creating, exploring, that your life has motion. That energy is magnetic. A man with momentum is hard to forget because momentum carries a charge. It creates a story in her mind, a curiosity about where you're going, what you're doing, who you're becoming. And curiosity is one of the strongest forms of attraction. Women don't miss stagnation. They don't miss comfort that becomes dull, conversations that never grow, men who never evolve. They miss energy. They miss challenge. They miss the spark of someone who keeps unfolding. If you're the same man tomorrow as you are today, you're not leaving her much to miss. But if you keep moving, keep refining, keep elevating, then even in your absence, she feels that forward motion and it pulls her thoughts toward you. One of the most overlooked aspects of making a woman miss you is the art of mystery, not secrecy, not dishonesty. Mystery, the subtle difference is this: secrecy hides out of fear, mystery unfolds out of choice. When you live fully, when you invest in yourself, when you're not broadcasting every detail of your life, you create an air of intrigue. She doesn't know everything, but she knows enough to want to know more. And that wanting, that hunger for the next piece is what keeps her mind circling back to you when you're not there. Think about the last time you finished a powerful movie or a gripping book and you found yourself replaying scenes in your head days later. Why? Because it left an imprint. Because it gave you enough to feel satisfied, but not so much that it emptied out the mystery. That's what you need to embody in her life. Not as a performance, but as a man who's layered, who's deep, who's not defined solely by her attention. Because when she can't fully place you, when she can't fully predict you, that's when she starts to think about you even when you're not around. Another truth of space without value creates indifference, but space with value creates longing. If you step back, but you haven't given her reasons to miss you, then all she feels is relief. But if you step back after filling the room with depth, with energy, with a presence that lights her up, then your absence feels like a subtraction. That's the difference between a void and a vacuum. A void is nothing. A vacuum pulls. And you want your absence to pull. Don't confuse attention with presence. Presence is not just being there physically. It's being so fully engaged when you're together that your energy sticks even after you've left. It's giving her your focus without distraction, your words without pretense, your laughter without calculation. It's authenticity, raw and unfiltered. That's the kind of presence that lingers, that leaves echoes, that turns silence into longing. Too many men lean on external gestures, flowers, gifts, constant messages as the only way to create longing. But longing doesn't come from external gestures alone. It comes from internal impact. It comes from the way she feels when she's with you, the way she feels about herself in your presence. Do you make her feel admired without worshipping? Do you make her feel comfortable without smothering? Do you make her feel excited without overwhelming? That balance is rare, and rarity is always missed. Here's another mistake: confusing detachment with strength. There's this idea floating around that if you want someone to miss you, you should ignore them, dismiss them, play the cold game. But here's the truth: coldness doesn't create longing, it creates resentment. What creates longing is warmth combined with restraint. It's not ignoring her, it's giving her just enough to feel secure while also leaving enough space to let her thoughts wander toward you on their own. It's not withholding to punish, it's stepping back to allow desire to breathe. Missing is an emotional response, not a logical one. She won't miss you because you told her to. She'll miss you because of the way you made her feel, the way you carried yourself, the way you imprinted on her experience of life. She'll miss you when her favorite song plays and it reminds her of you, when she hears a phrase you used to say, when she sees something that echoes your presence. Those anchors are built in the quality of your interactions, not the quantity. Understand this: if you're chasing her constantly, if you're checking her social media, blowing up her phone, reminding her you're always right there, you're removing the possibility of her missing you. You're feeding her in such excess that she has no room to feel hunger. Hunger is what missing is. Hunger for your attention, hunger for your presence, hunger for the way you made her feel. And hunger only grows when there's space between the meals. Sometimes the most powerful move you can make is to let silence work for you. Silence has weight. Silence carries mystery. Silence lets her thoughts fill the gaps with your image, your voice, your presence. When you rush to fill every gap with words, you rob her of the chance to imagine you. And imagination is powerful. It builds versions of you in her mind, versions that echo stronger than any text message. Now, let's talk about self-respect, because at the root of all of this is not manipulation, not tactics, but self-respect. When you respect yourself enough not to overgive, not to overchase, not to over-explain, you create balance. You show her that your validation is not dependent on hers. And paradoxically, that independence makes her value your presence more, because people are drawn to those who are whole. People are pulled toward those who don't need but choose. When she knows you don't need her to function, but you still choose her, that's powerful. That's rare. And rarity is always missed. You have to carry yourself as if you're the prize, not in arrogance, not in ego, but in truth. Because you are the prize when you've built yourself, when you've cultivated strength, when you've developed discipline, when you've nurtured your purpose. A man without purpose will suffocate a woman with attention. A man with purpose will attract her with presence. And when he steps away, she'll feel it because she knows she was in the orbit of someone moving forward, someone grounded, someone she can't easily replace. Replacements are everywhere. Attention is everywhere. But energy, true presence, authentic connection, that's scarce. And scarcity is what drives missing. When she knows that what you bring can't just be found in the next person, she values it. And when it's gone, she misses it. You don't need to prove your worth with constant reminders. You don't need to beg her to notice. You need to embody it so deeply that she can't ignore it. And then when you're not there, her mind naturally circles back to you. Not because you forced it, not because you demanded it, but because you earned it by being the kind of man who leaves a mark. Think about the people you've missed most in your life. It wasn't the ones who were always chasing you, always crowding you, always demanding your attention. It was the ones who gave you enough to feel deeply and then left space for that feeling to grow in their absence. It was the ones who carried themselves with such presence that even when they weren't around, you could still feel them. That's the energy you need to create. And the only way to create that is by becoming it. Not pretending, not acting, not copying tactics, but by building yourself into the kind of man whose presence has weight. And when you do, you won't just be trying to make a woman miss you. You'll naturally be missed by her, by others, by anyone who gets to experience your energy, because you've become someone who leaves an imprint, someone who doesn't just pass through, but stays in the memory, in the emotions, in the silence after you've gone. When you finally grasp this, everything shifts. You stop chasing and start attracting. You stop begging and start commanding. You stop overthinking and start living. And in that living, in that groundedness, in that confidence, you'll find that making a woman miss you isn't something you have to force. It's something that happens naturally because she feels the weight of who you are even when you're not there. The hardest lesson for most men to accept is that space is not your enemy, space is your ally. Space is the ground where desire grows, where curiosity forms, where memory lingers. A woman cannot miss you if you're always there filling every second of her time, every corner of her day, every gap in her thoughts. It is in the quiet, in the absence, in the moments you're not present that longing takes root. And yet, so many men fight this truth because silence feels uncomfortable. They rush to fill it with texts, with explanations, with reassurance. But what they don't realize is that in their attempt to avoid discomfort, they're also avoiding the very thing that could have made them unforgettable. The paradox is this: the more secure you are in yourself, the more comfortable you become with space. And the more comfortable you are with space, the more naturally you create longing. Because she feels that you're not desperate for constant connection, that you're not measuring your worth by her immediate response, that you're not addicted to her validation. That energy is rare. Most men don't carry it. Most men panic at silence. So when you don't, you stand out. And standing out is the first step to being missed. Missing is not about quantity, it's about quality. 10 shallow conversations won't make her miss you the way one powerful, unforgettable moment will. One moment where you make her laugh until she can't breathe. One moment where you look at her like you see through her walls. One moment where you carry yourself with such grounded confidence that she feels safe just being near you. That's what sticks. That's what echoes when you're not around. And no amount of constant, repetitive attention can replace the weight of one unforgettable moment. A man who knows his worth does not overplay his hand. He does not flood a woman with endless declarations, endless reassurances, endless proof that he cares. He shows it in his presence. He shows it in his consistency, and then he steps back. Because he knows that overexposure kills intrigue. He knows that people don't value what they can't lose. He knows that if he's always on demand, always accessible, always there without boundaries, he becomes background noise instead of music, and no one misses background noise. But music lingers. Music plays in the back of your head even when it's gone. Music makes you crave the next note. the next rhythm, the next chorus. That's what your presence should feel like. Music, not noise. Let's go deeper into boundaries, because that's where many men falter. Boundaries are not walls that push people away. They're lines that show self-respect. They're signals that say, I value my time, I value my energy, I value my purpose. And when you hold those boundaries firmly, without apology, you teach her to value them too. If you drop everything the moment she calls, if you sacrifice your commitments the moment she's free, you're teaching her that your time isn't valuable. And if your time isn't valuable to you, why would it be valuable to her? But when you hold your line, when you respect your schedule, when you let her know that you care but you don't abandon yourself, she feels that. And she misses the stability of a man who has backbone. Understand this: predictability without depth is boring. Unpredictability without grounding is chaos. But the balance, stability with a touch of unpredictability, that's intoxicating. When she knows you're reliable, that your character doesn't waver, but she also knows she can't fully predict how you'll surprise her. That's when she stays hooked. That's when she finds herself thinking about you in the quiet moments, because her mind is still unfolding you, still discovering you, still wondering about the next layer. And curiosity is a form of missing, a form of hunger, a form of desire. A woman will not miss what she doesn't notice. She won't miss what doesn't impact her. She won't miss what doesn't touch her in a real way. So stop focusing on absence as a tactic and start focusing on presence as an impact. Make her feel seen, make her feel understood, make her feel challenged in the best way. And then when you step back, she doesn't just miss a man, she misses the way she felt in your presence. That feeling is the hook. That feeling is the anchor. That feeling is what lingers in the silence. Most men collapse under the weight of rejection. They beg for attention. They panic at distance. They mistake her needing space for her losing interest. And in their panic, they chase harder, text more, show up uninvited, push for reassurance. And with every push, they push her further away. Not because she doesn't care, but because neediness smothers desire. You cannot make someone miss you if you never give them the room to feel the absence. Missing only happens when there is space to feel it. If you're always right there filling the gap, you're suffocating the very oxygen that desire needs to breathe. Do not confuse effort with effectiveness. Effort without wisdom is wasted energy. Sending her 20 texts is effort. Respecting your silence and letting her come to you is effectiveness. Calling her 3 times in a row is effort. Living your life so fully that she feels compelled to call you is effectiveness. The difference lies in self-control. The difference lies in trust. The difference lies in knowing that what you bring is valuable enough to be missed. Missing is an involuntary response. You cannot demand it. You cannot command it. You can only create the conditions where it naturally blooms. And those conditions are simple presence with depth, absence with respect, and self-worth that doesn't waver. If you carry those 3 things, she will miss you without you lifting a finger. She will think of you when you're gone. She will feel the space you leave. She will notice the difference. Here's something else most men overlook. Women miss mystery, but they also miss consistency. If you're hot and cold, if you're unpredictable in ways that feel unsafe, if you vanish without explanation, she won't miss you, she'll resent you. But if you're consistent in your character, consistent in your respect, consistent in your energy, and still leave space, still maintain mystery, still protect your individuality, then she misses you in a healthy way. She misses you because you brought value, not because you caused chaos. And that distinction matters. It comes down to this: don't try to manufacture missing. Live in a way that earns it. Be so rooted in yourself that your energy carries weight. Be so authentic in your presence that your absence echoes. Be so disciplined in your boundaries that your time feels valuable. And be so purposeful in your life that she feels lucky to have access to it. When you embody that, missing you isn't a tactic. It's an inevitable truth. Because a man who is centered, confident, mysterious, purposeful, present, that man doesn't have to beg to be missed. He just is. He becomes a reference point in her mind, a standard she measures others against, a feeling she can't replicate easily. And that is what keeps her thinking about you long after you're gone. So the question is not, how do you make her miss you? The question is, who do you need to become so that missing you is the natural result of who you are? Because when you answer that, you stop playing games, you stop chasing tactics, you stop faking confidence, and you start embodying the kind of man whose absence speaks just as loudly as his presence. And when you reach that point, everything changes. The dynamics shift. The energy flips. She starts to notice your silence instead of taking your presence for granted. She starts to replay your words instead of scrolling past them. She starts to crave your attention instead of drowning in it. That's when you've made her miss you, not because you forced it, but because you became someone impossible to forget.